Hey guys, this is Dana from Pop Goulash. I wanted to make sure that you knew how to reach us. Find us on Facebook under Pop Goulash. You can also find us on Twitter at Pop Goulash. We also have a phone number, and we definitely want you guys to give us a call with your thoughts, opinions, whatever, show ideas. That phone number is 224-325-4235. And you can also shoot us an email at popgoulash42@gmail.com. Thanks for tuning in.
I saw the best minds of my generation destroyed by madness, starving, hysterical, naked, dragging themselves through the Negro streets at dawn looking for an angry fix. Angel-headed hipsters burning for their ancient heavenly connection to the starry dynamo and the machinery of night. Hello, Paparinos. This is Ruben.
And this is Dana.
And we have a special guest on our Skype interview today. We've got Jen Slepicka.
Hello there. Hey, I'm here.
Okay, there you go. All right. But today is it's a somber one for a lot of us in our generation. So we're going to kind of go off a little format today from what we usually do and how we usually record the show. Because unless you've been living under a rock or been out of the country or have not been connected to anything in the last
3 or 4 days,
we're I know I am, but I'm not sure so much about Dana. I know to an extent, but we're mourning the loss of one of the greatest singers of our generation, and songwriters for that matter, and that's Chris Cornell of Soundgarden, Audioslave, and a very successful solo career of his own.
Temple of the Dog too,
and Temple of the Dog. Wednesday night. They'd gotten done performing, or was it Tuesday night?
It was
Tuesday.
No,
I found out Wednesday.
It was Wednesday night that it happened.
That it
happened. Yeah.
Okay, so Wednesday night they performed.
They were in Detroit.
They performed at the Fox Theater in Detroit, Michigan, and from all accounts, it was an amazing show.
Yeah, it looked fantastic. The video,
that were published, the video that was put out there, it looked like a fantastic show. After the show, Cornell goes to his hotel room at the MGM Grand. His handler gives him a couple Ativan because he struggled with anxiety.
Mm-hmm.
And then it just kind of goes gray.
It's weird because the accounts that you hear...
He called his wife.
Right, and I guess he was slurring or something like that. And then she had called the handler to go back to the room and go check on him.
Right, and from the accounts that I had read, he was not able to access the room.
Right.
He tried the door was locked.
Well, and that was after he had to ask hotel
management.
Yeah, and they were being kind of dicks about it. Yeah.
But in all fairness, though, he was not an assigned person to the room.
True.
Blah, blah, blah. But he ended up having to kick the door in.
And then to the bedroom too, I think, bathroom. Right? It was the bathroom.
And he did not see Chris anywhere in his hotel room. The bathroom door was locked, and he tried to call hotel security again to get the door open. They wouldn't open it, so he kicked the door in, and that's when he found Chris on the floor.
Yeah.
He had blood coming from his mouth.
I read that, too.
And he had an orange exercise band wrapped around his neck.
Yeah.
He was unresponsive. This was at 1 o'clock. By the time the paramedics got there at 1:30, they'd pronounced him gone.
Yeah.
This is he was a big time. Soundgarden may not have been enjoying the success of the stadium gods that they once were, but they've made a comeback within the last 5 years.
Right.
And they were enjoying success again, and it's tough for me because they were part of the Seattle Four, like the big Seattle Four.
And I'd go so far. One of my friends even said this too, and I'd go so far as to argue. I might get chastised for this by all the Nirvana fans out there, but I'd go so far as to say that he was kind of in my opinion, more of the shining beacon.
Yeah, he was, well, I mean, but he also had looking back on the history of it, he also had the time to become that shining beacon.
Sure.
You know, Kurt came and went. He was a shooting star.
Right.
Cornell was a supernova.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he was a black hole sun, if you will.
Yeah.
And between Nirvana, Pearl Jam, Soundgarden, and Alice in Chains, Pearl Jam's the only one we have left now.
I know. I still, it's so weird to wrap your mind around that, though, and to think about that, because we grew up on these bands. They were absolutely part of our generation. You know, we were there for when the movement started, if you will.
Yeah.
And it almost feels reminiscent in like the 60s when Janis Joplin died, and then Jimi Hendrix died, and then Morrison, thank you. Yes.
Yeah. But, you know, they all burned out within a period of 3 or 4 years.
Oh,
each other, I want to say.
For sure. But I guess kind of my point with that is, like, as far as like the musical influence, you know what I mean?
And for the Seattle scene, or for San Francisco at that time.
Exactly.
You know, the only ones that were left were Jefferson Airplane, who went through 17 incarnations,
I know.
and the Grateful Dead.
Right.
You know? But yeah, so it's like Soundgarden's career started way early. They were back in like 87, 88.
That's what I was going to say. It was definitely like the mid to late 80s when they first started.
Yeah,
and then
they were about to celebrate, I think, if they hadn't already, their
30 years
anniversary too. So, Jen actually went on Facebook earlier today and posted this amazing post. And, you know, for me, I know the music.
Sure.
And I knew a little bit about his personal life,
mm-hmm.
but this is interesting. And Jen, I'm gonna, you get all the credit for doing this. So I'm gonna read Jen's post here. She says, "Chris is more than just another guy from a band who took his life. He had a story. You should hear it. Born and raised in Seattle by 2 educated parents. His mother was an accountant, his dad a pharmacist. He attended Catholic schools, although he converted to be Greek Orthodox and was active in his church till his death."
Didn't you say? And I'm
I
sorry.
thought he was.
Yeah, sorry.
We'll get to that. He suffered from depression and anxiety from an early age.
Wow.
Addictions began at the age of 12.
Jeez.
He's had many careers. He began as a sous chef and has been in several bands. Most well-known Soundgarden, Audioslave, and Temple of the Dog. He was also a restaurant owner in Paris, and he also owned his own publishing company. He was the founder of a foundation for neglected children.
That's awesome.
He's been married twice. He has 3 children accumulatively. He's won 8 Grammy Awards, 7 MTV Music Awards, and a Golden Globe. Yeah, he took his life, and he was in a band. But looking at the overview, he was very well-rounded with many accolades. And anxiety, depression, and suicide do not discriminate, no matter your status or wealth. Should you need it, please seek help. Rest peacefully, Chris.
Jen, that's a great post. Thank you for posting that today. Like it's kind of making me tear up a little bit. That's just fantastic. You hit everything that needed to be said.
And I wanted to learn more. You know, where his kids are 11, 12, and 16. Like they're young kids now grieving the loss of their father. You know, where you think of who's left behind and how they're going to put the pieces back together. And so I knew him as an artist a little bit, but I needed to know more, you know, to talk about it today.
Yeah, and when Dana and I kind of stopped me during the reading, we had posted something about, or when it happened,
I think we talked.
No, it was on Facebook. I think.
Was it
or
on?
Maybe it was through text.
No, I think it was on text.
Either way, we were texting about like the last song that he performed was called "In My Time of Dying,"
mm-hmm.
which is an old blues cover.
Led Zeppelin covered it.
Yeah, most famous by Led Zeppelin, and there's a lot of
speculation.
Well, speculation, but there's also a lot of allusion to Christianity and Christ, and I was like, wow, it's kind of interesting that he would do that, because I had always thought that he was an atheist. He never really sang about God or anything in his music, so I never really, aside from like a few things, but that any artist would mention, like using the word heaven or God or. From the song on Bad Motor Figure called Jesus Christ Pose.
Yes.
It's like, well, maybe maybe he doesn't believe in any of this, but actually, he
was very active, yeah.
Very active, which really kind of surprised me. The few things that I knew about him was that, he really stood for something. When he stood for something, I remember back in '91 when Soundgarden was hitting their stride, and Lollapalooza '92 was the big thing with Pearl Jam and all that, and that was also the election of Bill Clinton the first time around.
Oh God, that's right.
He was part of the MTV's Rock the Vote.
You're right.
Thing. And he quickly pulled out. He did one commercial for it, and I remember watching the behind the music on it, and he's like, yeah, I didn't want to do it anymore because I realized that it was really edging people instead of making their own decisions to just vote for the Democratic Party. And he, I don't know what his political agenda was, one way or the other, but, he wanted people to make up their own minds. He didn't want to be that type of influence. And,
wow.
Which I know a lot of people nowadays are like, celebrities need to shut up and say their stuff one way or the other. I mean, however you feel about it, he lived that. And he was like, you know what? I don't want to use my celebrity as a platform. And as far as being a family man, I've only seen him twice in concert live. Once.
I never had the pleasure.
Oh, man. He was amazing. I saw him at Lollapalooza in 2002. It was like when they first brought it back, and he was with Audioslave.
Okay.
And one of the sweetest things I've ever seen at a concert was he took out a recorder.
Like the one, like from when we were kids,
like
recorder?
No, not like a bunch of kids playing Led Zeppelin like on a flute type recorder.
Got it. Okay.
No, like an audio recorder.
Okay.
And he said into the to the crowd, he's like, look, in every city that we're going to, I send back a little clip to my daughter of all the crowds that were playing.
That's awesome.
And he was like, 1, 2, 3, everybody say hi, and like everybody cheered and stuff like that. So he documented his tour for his daughter.
That's so cool.
And I was like, that's the sweetest fucking thing I've ever seen in my life.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
In 2011, it was the Pearl Jam 20 concert up in Alpine Valley, and it was a weekend festival. Kirsten got me tickets for our engagement. It was like I got 1 day out of the 2 days, which is fine.
Sure.
And went through the whole day, and Pearl Jam played their show. They just destroyed the stage. I mean, they killed it that night. And they came back out for the encore, and Eddie's like, hey, we're going to bring out something special for you guys. And out on stage walks Chris Cornell.
That's awesome.
And they did a Temple of the Dog reunion, and they performed the first 4 songs on the album in its entirety.
Wow.
From, Say Hello to Heaven all the way down to, I think, Call Me a Dog. I'm like, and I had tears in my eyes because that was like, for years, I was like, we will never, ever see Temple of the Dog. I mean, it was a one-off album they did.
Right.
To, like the first 2 songs, Say Hello to Heaven and Reach Down, were written for Andrew
Mother
Wood
Love Bone.
Mother Love Bone after he had...
he overdosed. That's right.
And he used the money and the proceeds from those 2 songs to help benefit his family.
That's so fantastic.
And I'm like, this is just a one-off thing they did as a love letter to their friend.
Mm-hmm.
And, we'll never see these guys tour. And holy shit, in front of me was Temple of the Dog, and it was splendid.
I know Seth saw Chris solo. I think she had seen him more than once, like when he was touring for his solo stuff too, and just every time she would tell me, oh my god,
yeah.
So talented, such a force on stage.
Yeah.
And I'm so bummed. My buddy Rob actually had said something like, you got to get out there while you can. It sounds so awful to say it, but you have to get out there while you can now and go see and go do the things that you love, because God forbid.
Yeah,
something like this. Yeah.
Jen, have you ever had any opportunity to see Cornell in any of his bands or any of their incarnations?
I have not, but I did hear that his daughter is a musician.
Really?
And so he would do shows with her to kind of spotlight her talent and that she is crazy talented.
Well, coming from that kind of
Wow.
pedigree, that doesn't surprise me. I mean, on our last podcast that we put out 2 podcasts ago, the Win Whiskey Talks guys actually asked us to, list our top 3
Oh, yeah.
vocalists of all time, and Cornell was one of mine.
Yeah.
Coming this week, yesterday actually, which would have been 2 days ago, Friday,
Mm-hmm.
they did a reissue of the single soundtrack.
And it's so crazy because I remember when I posted that the Rolling Stones article to the page, and it was just,
It was all about
yeah, it was
Soundgarden.
all about that.
So Jen, what she's talking about is, and I don't know if you saw it on Facebook from our page, but Rolling Stone did like a quick video clip of it. It was like a 5-minute interview with like Mike McCready from Pearl Jam and some of the guys from Screaming Trees, and they were talking about the song Birth Ritual on the single soundtrack, and McCready was just like, it's a perfect song. It's an absolute perfect song. And I remember hearing Cornell talk about it. He's like, oh yeah, we wrote the song for the movie, and we performed it live at the where they were shooting the film, and they ran through it once, and he's like, oh man, that felt good. And they're like, okay, you got to do it again. And they ran through it again, and he's like, this is really hurting me. I can't do this anymore. Like he was just taxing his voice just by singing the song. Because, I mean, look, I'm guessing that the 3 of us that are on this podcast right now has listened to the singles soundtrack
Oh my God.
hundreds of times.
Yes.
Yes. And he had a 4-octave range.
Yeah.
Like insane.
Yeah. Yeah. And just recently, Sirius XM, I want to say the Lithium station has been doing a lot of tributes to him, and I was listening to a bit of it yesterday, and he did a cover of Nothing Compares to You
Yes.
that made me, I choked up.
My friend Keaton performed with him in the studio at Sirius.
I remember you talking about that.
Yeah, Keaton, and he actually calls him out.
I wonder if it was the same performance.
It probably was, because he actually calls him out in the performance. And I remember when Keaton was posting all about that stuff and posting the pictures and the videos from it. It was a gorgeous representation of that song.
Absolutely, absolutely. And so they just reissued the soundtrack. It's a double CD and then a double LP. You can buy it on vinyl. And they just re-released it on Blu-ray as well for the first time.
Oh, they did.
Yes, it came out in April on Blu-ray.
That's great.
But on no matter how you buy the audio portion of it, if you buy the CD, it comes as a double CD with 18 tracks of outtakes on it. Same thing if you buy the LP, it comes on a double record, but it comes with a full CD. Basically, it's the exact same CD you get on the CD version.
Nice.
And Chris has of the 18 songs on that,
I'd say the majority are him.
1, 2, 3, 4.
At least half with him or Soundgarden.
Yeah, 6 songs and 1 with Soundgarden, so 7 total songs. So,
They dominated.
yeah. And Chris did a lot, and that was a lot for Chris too, because he did a majority of this as, a young musician. Because when Singles was filmed, they filmed it a year before anything happened in Seattle.
Oh, right. Yeah, it was right before.
Warner Brothers sat on the movie for a year. So that's when it came out. Everybody was like, oh, they're just trying to capitalize on the Seattle music movement. And that wasn't the case at all. Warner Brothers just sat on it for a year.
I never would have known. I never would have guessed that.
So Cornell did a lot of the score. A lot of the music that you hear in the background of the movie was composed by Chris Cornell.
And think about that too. So what this was released in 91 or 92, right?
92, I believe.
So he was 52 when he just passed. And think about that. That's 25 years ago.
Yeah.
He was 27 years
27
old.
years old.
To do that?
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Yeah, so I mean, his career it was a long and just a beautiful career that, anytime an artist goes, it takes a piece of you. And
Oh my gosh, yes.
his light was just diminished far too soon. But it's the one thing I guess we'll always have from him is the legacy of his music.
Yes. I mean, what do you say to that though? You know what I mean? It's just it's all the things, and I've been seeing a lot of people posting things like how selfish it was and how could you do that because you had the world at your fingertips, but
and all the money in the world.
Right. But that, like, I want to hear from Jen's viewpoint on that stuff too, because I really feel like people need to understand that side of, let's be honest, of the disease.
Yeah. So Jen, I asked Jen to come on today. I may have mentioned it when we first started, but Jen is she works with the Suicide Prevention Services of Fox Valley here in Chicago. Doing great work over there. I've participated in some fundraisers and events with them, and
that's cool.
They just do amazing work. So I would really love Jen to kind of speak out on this, and just to get some of your insight, Jen.
Thank you. I did my research before this just because I wanted to bring an educated view to this discussion today, and I was reading some articles this morning about him, and everyone talks about how cool and how calm he was, and talks about, how pleasant he was. And with anxiety and depression, I think he kept it in check. And I think that takes so much strength to do that, to be a presence and just stay level, knowing that, your anxiety is eating at you or your depression. And so I think he just got tired. He was doing, Tony has a new movie out, and so the final song is Chris Cornell's song, and so he's been traveling with his family to these movie premieres, and then the shows.
I'm sorry, Skype kind of broke out for a second there. What was the film?
I'm sorry?
The movie that he did.
I'm not sure what the movie was, but it was a George Clooney movie. He did the final score. The final song is Chris Cornell's.
Okay, sorry. Proceed. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt. I just didn't hear.
No, it's okay. But I think that he carried this burden of anxiety and depression for a very long time. And I think that he was tired. And I think that his anxiety was up, which is why he took the Ativan. And so I don't know if it was an impulsive ending or something that was just simmering under the surface for a long time. But he was just tired and needed to place that somewhere, I feel.
Yeah,
that's an interesting take too, though. Especially, can you go in a little bit more like how anxiety and depression play off of each other? Because I think, I mean, especially me, like I know I have friends who suffer from one or both of those afflictions, if you will, and I think it's important for people to understand how that plays off of one another. I mean, of course, we can't speak for him, right? But at least it helps people to get a better understanding of perhaps the mindset.
Sure. I think that either can just happen, whether it's a circumstantial situation or even TSD based on a life experience. Maybe something happened where, that's what triggered it. Maybe losing a loved one in general, maybe just any loss. Maybe stress just accumulated and that's what triggered it. But when you do have anxiety, I feel that a lot of people that suffer from that isolate because they don't know what to do with that. And so to crawl into bed and hide under the covers is where they seek shelter and comfort. But in doing so, then you're isolating and then you become depressed because you're alone. And so I think the two kind of teeter back and forth, volley back and forth, and you do the best that you can do. Some days you're the butterfly, some days you're the caterpillar.
Wow. Now, do you think, or can you speak to this too? Like people who have anxiety, is it normal for them to put out like a front, if you will? You know what I'm saying? Like to kind of hide that. Okay.
Oh yeah. Where, I think we all do that though. You've got something going on at home and you stuff that down and you push it down. But then when you get home, it surfaces right back up and maybe even tenfold, and so I feel that's maybe what could have happened. He had a show, he needed to perform, he's a performer. And so to take on that stage persona and then to come back to his hotel room, anxiety's kicking up tenfold, you pacify that with some Ativan and it just, the whole cycle kind of continues. And this time, this once, it was too much.
Now, do you think too? Because you hear a lot about antidepressants, anti-anxiety medications, especially in younger people, where it would actually they cause suicidal thoughts and suicidal actions. Do you think that it's very possible that may have had? I mean, and obviously we're just speculating.
Of
here,
course.
But do you see that as more of because it was so sudden? That's the thing. It was so sudden, and.
I don't think it was, though.
Well,
I think that it
us,
started at the age of 12. And so you figure, all right, we all have our life bucket, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so it's drops and drops of rain and water that fill our bucket. And then you get to the point where your bucket is just overflowing and you would do anything to dump that bucket, just to dump it, just because it's so full and so saturated and there's no room, And so I think that, starting at the age of 12, with the depression and anxiety, and then all of his addictions throughout the years. And I just think that it just became too much. I think his bucket was just too full.
Yeah, that's just a beautiful way to put it. I mean, it's sad, but it's a beautiful way to put it.
I agree, and I'm really glad that that's kind of the imagery that you use, because I think it's an easy way for people to relate as well.
Thank you.
Because I mean, every time we hear of suicide, not every time, but a lot of times we hear suicide, especially like going through high school.
Mm-hmm.
They always talk to us about it. Oh, well, you always got to look for the warning signs. People start being distant.
People hide that
they
shit,
give
though,
their
too.
stuff away, and they do all this, and it's not always the case.
Right.
People don't always leave a note.
Right.
And it's so tragic that it happens. And and sadly, it leaves a wake.
That is the sad reality of it. Is it a selfish act? I mean, who am I to say? Yes, but at the same time, we're not that person.
It's not what they're not.
Yeah,
they're
continue,
not thinking
Jen.
that, though.
Right. I want you to touch on that.
If you're thinking, okay, your lives will be better and more enhance the burden of me, is what they're thinking. Where they'll be fine, they'll go on. It's sometimes a release, a positive thought, that they're having, that they can stop this pain and this suffering that they've been feeling. So that's more of a euphoric feeling, perhaps. There's a lot of different, but they're not thinking about sparing your feelings and thinking that you're going to be sorrowful. Like maybe for a moment you'd be sorrowful, but your lives are going to move on and you're going to carry on and be happy, successful beings, where, that's more of the mind frame, where it's not trying to hurt anyone or, cause injury. It's just, it's more of I am a burden and I'm going to release you of that.
And how, and when you're in that place, I mean, I've been in that place before, and it's a very dark hole to crawl out of, because, like you said, you're not trying to hurt anybody else. You really do believe that people will be better off, and and that you're no longer a burden. I mean, I can absolutely agree with everything that you just said.
Thank you.
So, Jen, with your activity with the suicide prevention services, how did you get involved with the organization?
Sure. My grandmother took her life when I was little.
Oh, I'm so
my mom was a
sorry.
third grade school teacher, and so her career was put on hold and she needed to make sense of it all. So she went back to school to get her master's degree in suicidology, and then started the crisis line of the Fox Valley, which was a 24-hour hotline.
Wow.
And then that spiraled into SPS, which actually May 29th of 1998 is when it became official.
Wow.
And that's when now they offer counseling, support groups, depression screening, 24-hour hotline, intervention training, all kinds of stuff. And so now it's more elaborate. But I've had people show up on my door, often, where they're thinking of self-harming, or maybe they have. I had a neighbor show up a couple months ago. She had tried to take her life the night before. She went to a hotel room and downed a bottle of Sleepy Time Tylenol or something like that, and ended up getting sick off of it and was frustrated that she was unsuccessful. And so, I was sitting on my deck watching for the raccoon, and here she walks up my walk and is, just a puddle of tears. And where do you even begin to help someone in that position mend? And I had to figure it out. She had to, together we had to figure it out, and where to go and what to do and what follow-up to take. And that's just, it's life. And she's doing great now, and she recognizes that will always simmer below her surface, but she knows she can come here, and we'll figure it out.
That's great.
I'm glad she came here.
As am I. Jen, I love your heart. I really do. Like, Jen is, I've known Jen since high school.
Mm-hmm.
And even then, Jen, you've always been, a person that you could go to, you could talk to, just you've always had a massive heart for people and critters and
I feel like we're very similar.
Well, I say that because Jen lives near the river, so she finds a lot of Jen is like Cinderella,
Snow White, you mean?
Snow White, where like the woodland creatures just like seem to gravitate towards her. She nursed a little raccoon.
Oh,
yes.
Back to health, and then got him sent away back into the wilderness. I mean, Jen's just one of these people that, I know that if I ever had an issue that, needed a unbiased ear or someone to talk to, I could reach out to Jen.
It's important.
I value that.
It's so important to have people in your life like that as well, though, because I think that people who don't have someone like that in their life, it kind of breaks my heart to not have that. So, I mean, Jen, I know I don't know you, but I kind of feel like I do know you at the same time. I think you sound like such a wonderful woman, and that's amazing.
No, you need to call me a girl.
What, dear? Oh, thank you.
Yes.
So, Jen, at the SPS, how many... I mean, do you guys have any metrics as to how many people
question.
Call in for help, or, I know a lot of it is
we do
confidential and stuff like that.
I don't know all the metrics. I do have them on the website. I know that we've helped, I think, 120 students just in this past year.
Oh, wow.
And that was just, high school students and younger, with counseling and depression. But I know the numbers right now have spiked. There's always a delay of about 18 months for them to give us the newest statistics for years past. I'm not sure what it is, if it's just the coroners not communicating to the computer system or whatever, but I expect now to be the highest that it's ever been. And the calls have definitely increased, especially with the past election for either whatever reason. It's spiked very high.
I never would have thought about that with an election. That's very interesting to me.
Well, I mean, there's a lot of people that are very afraid for what's going to happen.
That's 100%. Yeah.
You got to think of all of our friends that are in the LGBT community.
Yeah.
And with some of the current establishments' stances on them and their lives, it doesn't surprise me. And it's sad.
Yes.
It breaks my heart.
Yeah.
Absolutely breaks my heart.
And that's a high target. That target group, the LGBT community, is a huge target group, and it has always been, but more so now than ever.
Jeez. It's just hard to wrap your mind around that.
Well, I guess the light at the end of this tunnel is that there are people out there like Jen, and
right,
like the suicide prevention services that are there, just an anonymous ear to listen to and to talk to and to help give direction, or like Jen said, they offer counseling services, and to be able to help, and it's it makes me glad as a human being to know that you guys are out there. Because, let's face it, like, a lot of people want to say, well, this is the church's problem, the church needs to handle this, or this is a government problem, the government needs to handle it. And the church fails. It just does.
Mm-hmm.
I know. There have been times where I've needed help just talking, and the church ain't there for it.
That stinks.
The government ain't there for it at
Right,
all.
right.
I mean, good luck with that. But knowing that there are private citizens out there that are willing to take their own time to talk to somebody on the other end of a phone that they have no idea who you are, what your situation is, but just they care enough just to say, talk to me. Let me know what's going on. Because I don't know you, but I love you.
I'd like to piggyback that too, where I think I have a really important thing to say, where I important as an individual, as a person, as each of us, to take responsibility for the people in our and even facing the radar, with depression, to reach out to them and to connect with them. Hey, are you okay? Are you thinking about hurting yourself? Is to get them to call a stranger is a larger hurt. To get them to talk to you is more relevant or likely to happen.
Okay, Jen, I'm sorry. The Skype was really breaking up, so let me try and paraphrase that. I think I got what you were saying, but basically, for us as just humans in this civilization, in this society, that we need to take our personal responsibility for those friends and families and loved ones that are in our lives to start recognizing when our friends are...
To reach out to them. Yeah, if you see someone who's depressed and you're like, oh, they're just having a bad day, take it a step farther and reach out to them and follow, are you thinking about hurting yourself? I'm here to listen to you and own that and know that you're empowered enough to be a good listener in that moment for them.
That's awesome. So important. That's so important to say, though, too, because I feel like in the unfortunate aftermath, after somebody takes their life, people kind of reminisce like, oh, I noticed something, right? Like I noticed something was off and I should have said something. And I really feel, I mean, I just lost a friend last year to suicide. And so knowing that, and I even said some of the same things though too. And it's like, damn it, why didn't I ask her? She seemed like she was down. Why didn't I? And I get you can't beat yourself up forever about that, but it's so important to hit on that, to reach out to those people. You just have to.
That's a wonderful thing to say, Jen, Dana. Nobody knows the people in your life, I guess, better than you do.
Right.
And yeah, it is easy to just kind of brush it off as, oh, we're, buck it up, you're doing okay, and
yeah,
man.
I mean, you've even reached out to me a couple times recently. Like I've just been having some personal things go on, and it just it meant so much just for you to be like, hey, you seem like you're kind of in a shitty mood or something. Do you want to talk about it? Like even if I don't want to talk about it, it's just knowing that I have people there who do care. It's it means a lot.
Absolutely. I appreciate that. So.
I appreciate you. So.
And just so you guys know out there in the podcast land, if you're feeling down, there's somebody out there that's going to help you out, whether it be a friend, a family member, just a guidance counselor at school. Reach out. You can also reach the suicide prevention hotline. It's 800-273-8255. And if you're one of the people who aren't suffering like this, but like Jen said, if you notice something is off, reach out to that person for your friends, for your family. It's so important, and it doesn't matter how much money the person has or how much they've got going for them. This suicide can affect anybody.
Yeah.
The people who are poorer than poor and the people who have everything going for them. It's not.
It doesn't discriminate.
It's not socioeconomic.
Right.
It's mental, and we just need to. I think and I think that's part of the problem with society today is that everything is digital. You know,
God,
you don't
yeah.
like you and I have gotten into arguments over texting, and it's just been like one of us is just like, "Why are you yelling at me?"
Right.
You know, because there's no inflection. You know, pick up the phone.
Right.
Dial the numbers. Call.
Right.
Talk to people. You know, people are so quick to snipe out on social media and exasperate an issue where instead of, you know, they're goddamn trolls are so quick to slap your face instead of reach out a hand to help. And, you know, I'm sure that Jen could probably attest too with the advent of
technology
and the explosion of the internet and the shaming and trolling and bullying online.
I can't even imagine how that affects
being a kid growing up these days.
Yeah. I mean, we're all like the same age. So Jen, actually, and that does bring up a really good point though, Ruben. I think, Jen, can you speak to that a little bit as well, like with social media and how that perhaps has affected people suffering from anxiety or depression or both? I mean, do you find that being at the forefront of I know you can't talk specifically about a case or anything like that, but are you finding more that's having more of an influence these days?
I think that it's a hindrance and it's good. Where I think it's a hindrance that we don't shut it off. You know, like it's social media is always on. There is bullying or communication, it's always on. But on the flip side, we have a text lines where if someone's not comfortable calling, we do have the ability to text with them. And so in that regard, it's a positive.
Sure.
You know, if they're not up to making the phone call, they can be discreet and anonymous, but still get the help that they need.
Wow. That's great that kind of a service exists now.
Yes.
It's sad too because there's, I know within the last few years, there have been several junior high and high school age kids who've committed suicide, even grade school. I think, Jen, if I'm not mistaken, wasn't there a child in Yorkville or Plano?
Yorkville.
Yeah, that was
11-year-old boy.
And it was all over cyberbullying.
It was more to it than that.
Okay.
I can't speak directly on it just because his mother is a good friend of mine now.
Sure.
But there were a lot of pieces, a lot of components, and a big portion of it, I can say, was the young. He was young. He was 11, and so he didn't have the coping mechanisms to handle what was going on. And you know, there's impulsivity also in several cases of, you know, any age of suicide.
Sure.
But especially in younger children. And so all those components coupled together, we lost him.
That's awful.
And as a father,
He was the first one, actually, you know, after that happened, that one really struck me the hardest and the worst. And
I can imagine.
now I'm going to cry.
Oh, no, don't cry, because then I'm going to cry.
My son came home from school. My son came home from school, and I sat him down on the couch, and he was 6 at the time, a 6-year-old boy. And I held his hand, and I cried my eyes, and I told him what had happened. And I told him, you know, that, you know, 11-year-old boy had taken his life, and how sad his mother must feel, and how awful I would feel if anything had ever happened to him, and that he can always come to me and talk to me, you know. And that was our first real suicide conversation. I mean, at 6, I didn't expect to have that conversation with him. But I think that's another key piece that's really important is, especially with our kids, start talking about it at a really young age, that in a way that's age appropriate.
Sure.
And evolve it as the years go on. Like now we talk about, you know, if you ever think of hurting yourself, and he understands what that is. And so, you know, to keep those come to me, you can tell me anything, I'll stay with you. And, you know, just to know that our kids have us to go to, I think is so important. So important.
I can't really speak
and they're
on
not
that
easy
because I'm not a
conversations.
parent,
You know, it's you'll stumble and maybe cry, and it'll, you know, but it's so real and so important to start that conversation.
Absolutely.
I agree. I mean, Ruben, like I know obviously you have children. I don't, so I can't even imagine.
You have a lot of friends who do have kids.
I do have a lot of friends who have kids, and I mean, and of course, I was a kid.
Really?
Right? I know. No, I just kind of popped out looking like this. I popped out being 38. It's fine.
But yeah, start the conversation even among our friends. Like, hey, it's like I equate it to being like a fire. In fact, I posted a post about this too, and how, when I was in elementary school, the fire department came in and asked us, what would you do in case of a fire? And so at home at dinner, I asked my family, what would we do? So we came up with our family plan, and I would throw my blankets and stuff out the front bushes and jump onto the bushes, and I would have a safe landing. And this should be talked about just as plainly. What would you do in case of, you get severely depressed or think about suicide? What would we do as a family? Just even over dinner, to have that candid conversation. And would you go to your doctor? Would you go to, a specialist? Who would you call? How would you handle it as a family? Hoping that it would never happen, just the same as a fire, but to start that conversation and have a what if plan, I think is so important too.
And as a new dad, hearing stuff like this and just trying to navigate through it all. I mean, there are so many difficult discussions that I'm learning that I'm going to end up having.
You're going to have
with
to,
my boys,
yeah.
Whether it be the suicide talk, the sex talk, the don't stick the fork in the outlet talk.
Don't pull what my sister did when she was a kid.
Right. There's so many and I guess as a parent, there's a lot of hesitation to have these conversations.
Sure.
Because you want to keep the kids as innocent as possible, but at the same time,
it's reality, though.
It's very much reality, and I think that and look, it's going to be a couple more years before I have to start having these conversations, because I mean, obviously, having a suicide conversation with a 2-year-old, like you said, Jen, maybe there's a way we could work around that, but I think a lot of the hang-ups parents have with talking to their kids about it isn't necessarily...
They're scared.
They're scared themselves. Not necessarily they're scared of how the kids are going to take it or of the kids' level of understanding. But for me, it's like, how do I breach this?
Sure.
How do I talk about this to my kid?
And there's a really good way to segue into it, too, where SPS has a Pokemon gym on the premise of SPS, as well as a geocache hidden on the premise of SPS.
Oh my gosh.
So a clever way is to go looking for one, whether the Pokemon gym or the geocache. And, oh, by the way, these people help people when they're really sad. And so if we're ever really sad, this is where we come, okay? To kind of have that very basic, whether or not they grasp it, it doesn't matter. But to start that conversation that way, I think is, a unique way to do it.
That is absolutely amazing.
It's brilliant. That's 100% brilliant. I can't even say anything to that. That's fantastic. Wow.
Thank you.
But yeah, that's, and the innovation that you guys have is just, like the whole, like you were saying that you guys have a text number. That blows my mind. I would have never thought to hey, you know what? Kids text, let's put a text line in.
Same thing. I never in a million years would have thought that either, but it really is. It's comforting to know that you guys are staying on that edge of technology and offering those alternative contact methods, because I never, like you said, Ruben, I never would have guessed that in a million years.
So, Jen,
thank you.
Jen, would you mind giving us do you have the text code for that?
I do not. It's on spsamerica.org. You can start the chat from that website homepage.
Okay.
As well as having our telephone numbers on there if you want to call, and then all of our social media sites.
Yeah, that will also be put on the...
We'll put it in the description.
Of the show, and we'll tweet it out as well.
Yeah, we'll put it the description. We'll put it on the Facebook page. We'll make sure that we get that information out there for sure.
Cool. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Oh, it's important that folks have this information. So, but
yeah,
Jen, I really, really appreciate you coming on the show today. I love your heart. I love the way that you are so active in this particular field that it warms me to know that that you are there,
that people like you exist. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Oh, thank you.
And I'm going to piggyback on what Ruben said as well. It's just thank you for doing what you do, because I can't, people like you inspire me. I mean, I'm going back to school for nursing because I want to help people, and people like you continue to inspire me to continue on that path. So just thank you. Thank you for being you and being
Thank
there.
you. Thank you.
Absolutely.
And Ruben, thank you for participating. A big portion, we are a nonprofit, and so we don't get a lot of state money. In fact, most of those are getting cut with the new administration. So you participating in events as often as you have, and you have for years,
Yeah, this
that
was the first year
is
that I wasn't
such a
able
great
to-
way to give back. And that is so important, and we are so grateful for that. So thank you for that.
No problem. And I just kicked myself for not participating this year. Look, what Jen is speaking on is the every year they do a fundraiser called 50 Men Who Cook.
That's the, yes.
Yeah, and
yes.
I, with the exception of this year, I think I'd perform. I had
You've been doing it
participated
for
the last 7 years prior to that.
that sounds
Yes.
about right.
This year, I just drew a blank, and then with the kids,
Yeah.
life got in the way, and I just wasn't able to do it. And I will definitely be back next year. You can bet your
I'll be
$1
counting on it.
that.
And Jen, if you guys need volunteers next year too, I mean, I'm happy to come and volunteer and help however I
Cool
can.
thing is, on
I
the
appreciate it.
Facebook page, Jen is constantly posting of different events that they do.
Oh, that's great.
They do like a Santa run.
Oh,
They have you guys just did the hug booth here recently, correct?
Hug Booth is coming up in July.
Oh, fantastic! So yeah.
That's so much fun. And so we are looking for volunteers for the Hug Booth at Metaphysically Fit Fest in Yorkville. And then we have our SPS Suicide Prevention Walk, which is really big. That's in St. Charles on September 9th. And then the second Saturday in December is when we do our Santa Shuffle. That's always a good time. So there's lots of different levels of, whatever's in your comfort zone to come out and join us.
Yeah, they also tried to do a sky lantern festival.
oh.
But of course, this stupid state of Illinois are a bunch of jagoffs and said that that's a fire hazard.
Are you?
So what Jen does is she'll post where they're having sky lantern festivals around the states.
That's great.
So if it's a destination that's close by that you can get to, you can actually go and memorialize folks that way.
That's awesome. That's really awesome.
So, but Jen, again, thank you,
Thank you.
100% for coming on the show today.
Yes.
It means a lot to me. It means a lot.
It means a lot to me too.
And our listeners, especially in light of, and it's sad that it takes a
Tragedy.
celebrity or a tragedy to have these conversations. But I guess the one positive that we can come from it is that these conversations are being had.
Right. I completely agree with that.
So guys, just remember out there, like I said, if you feel like that you're just at the end of the rope, and you feel that there's nothing that you can do, trust me, there's always someone that you can reach out to. There's
Yes.
always someone to reach out to. So, but yeah, just realize that there's always someone that you can talk to. That there's
People care.
people do care.
Even if you think that they don't, people care.
And I know that it just seems very cliche to say it, but it's the truth.
It is
Absolutely the truth.
100%.
So
I think it's important to remember that tomorrow's a brand new day that you've never experienced before.
Absolutely.
And so to push through in a moment and just know that tomorrow's a brand new day.
absolutely.
That's so well said, Jen. I think that's kind of the way that we can end this. I mean,
Absolutely, and we'll end it. And Jen, again, thank you very much. I know I've said thank you like 50 times. But I'll say thank you 50 more times before we're done. But yeah,
My pleasure.
Oh, it was our
it was
pleasure
our
having you
pleasure.
on.
Yes.
Hopefully we can have you on again at some point for a happier discussion.
Yes.
Talk about movies and music.
I would love that.
We could bullshit like we usually do.
Well,
This has been I almost feel like this is one of those ABC specials where they're
Yeah.
today on a very special episode of Facts of Life. But yeah, we definitely would love to have you back on for more of a fun, upbeat.
We could do like a
lighthearted
mystery science theater kind of in-person movie viewing and talk shit about it.
That could
And
be fun.
Monis and I talked about it last night. I think it
Nice.
would be fun.
That's awesome.
Close it out. We did get one phone call.
Thank you for calling. I mean,
Yeah.
I think I know it's a hard topic for people to want to talk about. So we just thank you for still participating on the page with all the conversation that happened this week too. So thank you guys for that.
So, and just I'll just close with the
voicemail. Cool.
But just to flip it up a bit, don't even just be kind to one another, but also be kind to yourself.
Absolutely.
You're loved and you're wanted.
Yes, I couldn't say it any better.
Hey guys, Jesse calling from Minnesota. Just got done listening to an hour-long tribute to the great Chris Cornell on the local rock station here in Minneapolis, St. Paul. All I gotta say is the death of Chris Cornell has completely gutted me, man. I'm sitting here fresh after hearing Say Hello to Heaven by Temple of the Dog, and I've got tears streamed down my face. It's a shock. It sucks. Fuck suicide. Rest in peace, bro. This is Jesse Wheeler signing off from Minneapolis, St. Paul. Peace, bitches.
Say hello to heaven indeed.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you guys for tuning in.